Hi there, I'm Julie from This Beautiful Farm Life. Thanks so much for joining me in the farmhouse today. Today I'm going to be talking about my cast iron and how to care for it. So I've had some questions about my cast iron because I've mentioned it in other videos and I cook with it all the time. So I thought I would just take a little quick opportunity to show you how we care for our cast iron on a day-to-day basis while we're using it. This is a 10-inch flat griddle, round griddle. It gets used a lot at our house. In fact, this one practically lives on the stove. It never hardly gets off. Barely long enough sometimes to get washed and put back on. And so it's very heavily used. This pan is still a little warm, but I just wanted to show you, my son just made eggs and pancakes on this. Sometimes when we get done using the cast iron, we really don't even have to wash it. Just depends on how dirty it is. So in this case, you can just take a rag and just wipe it dry, and it's pretty much clean. There's not really anything left on there. And then all I do is just oil it with a little cooking oil. Most of the time, if you are using oil while you're cooking, you don't really have to add much oil to it. And if you've only had to just wipe it dry, it's fine. But this one is not as smooth as some of the other ones, and I'll tell you why. It's because my kids probably don't treat it as well as they should. So it doesn't have that beautiful shine this one has. I think you can tell the difference inside there. One of them has been really well maintained. I do most of the cooking in this one and the restoring of it. This one gets used over and over and over again on the stovetop, a lot of times without proper cleaning in between or oiling, so it's a little bit more rough. It probably could benefit from a little clean, a rough clean down and a re-season, but that's just because my kids use it all the time. Still though, nothing's sticking, just not as smooth as I like them to be. Okay, so tips on using your cast iron. If you don't want your cast iron to be sticky, you need to start with a well-seasoned cast iron. And this is a little bit of a long process. You can buy new cast iron that is pre-seasoned, and it's pretty good. The Lodge is pretty good. I have found that it's a little bit rough. So you can use it just like it is and it won't stick, or you can do a total refinish of it and put a really hard seasoning on it and it will be smoother. And I can tell you about that in just a minute. But once you start with a seasoned pot, the main thing that you want to do to not have things stick is you want to preheat your cast iron before you put your food on. So put it on your burner, put it on warm, medium, let that burner run on there for a little bit, add a little oil if you think you're going to need it for whatever you're cooking, and let that warm up well. And once it's really warm, if you have well-seasoned cookware, you don't hardly need any oil. In fact, my son didn't use any oil today. It wasn't necessary. So, but if you need a little bit of oil, put it on, warm it up, make sure it's warm and good. And once it's nice and warm, you can crack an egg right on there. You can scramble eggs. I scrambled eggs on this pan the other day for my granddaughters, and it will not stick. So just make sure it's well-seasoned, it's warm, and it's oiled. Then the other thing you want to do, especially if you're doing eggs, when you first crack them on, if you're doing scrambled eggs and you have already stirred them up and poured them onto your pan, give that pan just a minute to kind of little bit just sear the bottoms of those eggs. And when you give that 30 seconds or a little bit more, it will actually just swipe right off. And I wish I had taken a video the other day of my scrambled eggs. I actually did them, I think, on this 12-inch one, and I barely fit without pouring over the edges for my granddaughters, but it just cooked up so slick. When you have a well-seasoned pan, it's the best. So I love my cast iron for that. So now once you've used your cast iron, how do you clean it? The easiest way to clean it is just with hot water and a scraper. Now Lodge makes a little scraper that you can, I think some of them, the pans come with a scraper. I don't know where all mine have gone. This is just another little generic scraper that I have. And hot water and this scraper, anything that's stuck on, this generally does it. There's not too much stuck on, sometimes a little bit around the edges of the pans, where the eggs might have got cooked on the edge a little bit harder. So that's all we really need to do with that. We also have a little scrubbing rag that we got from Norwex, and this little scrubbing rag I love. We wash our dishes with this, so I use that. Now, you've always heard never use soap on cast iron, and that is 90% true. You really don't want to have to use soap on your cast iron, and if you have well-seasoned cast iron, you shouldn't need to use soap. But if you have a little bit of stuck-on stuff, it's not the end of the world if you use just a dab of soap once in a while, but it really isn't that necessary. I use this in some hot water, and I usually can get anything that's stuck on very much to come off within just a minute. So after you've washed your pan and it's all clean, the next thing you want to do is to dry it off right away. So I usually dry mine with a paper towel. I don't like to put my white cloths on them because sometimes there is a little bit of that oily finish that does come off on my white towels. Then some people recommend that you set it on the burner, turn the burner on low, and just let it air dry real quick for a minute. And then you just need to take a little bit of cooking oil and season up the top again, and then store it away. That's how it's generally done. I don't always take the time to do the warming of the pan. Usually it's pretty warm out of the sink. It dries off pretty quickly. We live in a really dry climate, but if you have a lot of moisture in your air and you're having trouble with things getting rusty, then by all means put it on your stove, dry it for a minute before you oil it up and put it away. And that's how you want to put your pans away, so they're always oiled up and ready to go for cooking, and they're protected. If you've purchased or have come across some antique pieces at yard sales or on Craigslist that you want to purchase, you can restore those, and there's a little process to it. I have found a video tutorial by Jeffrey at the Culinary Fanatic to be excellent in helping you to restore your pans. His basic steps are to put your pans upside down in your oven and use your oven cleaning setting, and leave your pans in there during that setting, and it will burn off all that residue that's old and dirty. And then he takes them out and he scrubs them up with soap and water, a Scotch-Brite pad, and gets them all really clean, as smooth and clean as he can. And then he takes a wire cut brush and he hooks it to his drill, and he literally drills, brushes out the inside of those pans until they are smooth as butter. And once they're really clean, he washes them up again, puts them in the oven, he warms them up to a couple hundred degrees, he puts his oil on. Now he uses shortening, Crisco. I'm not real excited about that in her diet. It's just for the seasoning process, which you only have to do occasionally, so it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't necessarily cook out of it into your food. It's just this one time. So Crisco would do. You could also use lard or bacon fat or some of those other ones. I've also read recently about using flaxseed oil, which you keep in your fridge and is really good for you. It has a very low smoke point, but for seasoning pans, once you season it, it hardens in there and it doesn't come off and give you carcinogens from that. So that's another option to look into, but I will link Jeffrey's video below and you can watch it on how to restore your pans back to new and his seasoning process. And he has beautiful pans. In fact, after looking at his video not long ago, I decided that some of mine really could use some refreshing, and I probably need to work on them and reseason them. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to venture into cast iron cooking, I encourage you to try it. It's not as hard as it looks, and it makes your food cook beautifully. So I hope this helped you and encouraged you, and I'm glad you joined me here in the farmhouse today. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and come on back and watch me here each week. I put new videos up every week on fresh, nourishing food, wholesome living, and simple farmhouse beauty. Thanks for joining me here. Bye now.